Got it.
Hi
Last
there,
chance to be
Noblesville.
on.
This is Neighbors, and today we're going to spotlight some authors, our very own local talent. We have Rex Dillinger here with us today, as well as Janet Hart Leonard and Susan Crandall. And with that, they are all authors, our local authors, and they're going to tell us a little bit about themselves and what they're doing next, where they're going to be showing up, and how you can join in, meet them, buy a book from them, maybe get an autographed copy. So with that said, let's bring on Rex first. Rex, welcome to Noblesville Neighbors.
Thank you, Sally. I appreciate it. It's really great to be here. My name's Rex Dillinger. I grew up in Noblesville from kindergarten all the way through high school and beyond. In fact, we've been a Noblesville resident until just last year when we moved to Chicago to be near the last 3 grandkids. And that is the only reason that I can think of that I would have left my hometown, but you know how grandkids are. So it's really great to be here. We've, I've been involved in Noblesville my entire life, helped coach the Grinder football team, was on the Noblesville City Council, even ran for mayor and lost by 10 votes. So got a lot of background in Noblesville, and it's still my hometown, even though I'm not living there currently.
Great, thanks, Rex. Janet, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, well, I've lived here my whole 67 years, and I am the oldest of the 3. I've lived on the same street, on 12th Street, for all these years. For 26 years, I decorated homes. For 16 years, I sold cars at Don Hines Ford. Then I retired, and I had been writing a newspaper column since 2004. And when I retired, my husband said, well, it's time to write your book. So I still write for the Hamilton County Reporter and the brave men who let me say whatever I want. So that is a weekly column that comes out, and the book, When the Heart Speaks, was published in May of 2022. And now I'm working on actually another nonfiction. It will be called Soft Words for Hard Times. And I'm having fun putting together a fiction.
Wow, you are busy. Susan, what do you got going on?
Well, also lifelong resident of Noblesville, other than I spent 7 years in Chicago against my will, right after I was married. And we decided we did not want to raise children up there. So we moved back to Noblesville in 1981. So Janet and Rex and I started kindergarten together. So we went all the way to caps and gowns. So we go way back. In fact, Janet, I knew her when I was like 1 week old. So our mothers were neighbors when we were little. So we go way back. I was a dental hygienist when I had a professional job. But actually, Sally, my dear sister, tricked me into writing one day, and it stuck. I've never looked back. So I have 12 published novels. I've got a 13th finished, still need some revisions. I've started a new novel that is either going to be a giant novel or a series. I'm not sure what's going to happen, but it's an American historical that is based on some of our family stories.
And I have to say to all of you, I'm shocked that she admitted that I'm her sister. So it was just a kind of an ongoing kind of a tee-hee with us. So anyway, yes, so Susan is my sister. And behind me is the school that you all attended when you first started kindergarten. Well, I guess kindergarten was actually at Connor School at the time.
Yes.
Right.
And then from first grade to 5th grade, was it? You guys were over here
6th.
at First Ward?
Well, First Ward was through 4th grade, and then they used us as pack mules to move stuff. Do you guys remember that?
Oh, carrying books and whatever.
The
else.
last days of school. Yes. They had us move to the new building.
I actually moved to Connor School for 3rd grade on. So had Mrs. McMahon in third grade, as a matter of fact, because we had moved out onto Waterman Drive. So
Ah,
I left First Ward a little earlier than everyone else.
That's
They were
right.
Then-
probably
At
glad
least
to
you
get rid of
were
it.
at First Ward. The key is, it is the binding tie here is First Ward.
Yes, for sure.
And of course, Noblesville High School. So you all graduated about the same year. And
exactly.
so Noblesville High School looked a little bit different than it does today. It was where Ivy Tech is now. A lot of people from Noblesville don't know that, but Ivy Tech is where y'all went to high school.
Also, Sally, we're the first class that went all the way through what was then the new junior high out on Field
Mhm.
Drive.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
A
So
lot of
that's
firsts
what,
for
fifth and
us.
sixth grade now, or whatever. Who knows what it is now? I'm terrible. I'm old like y'all. So at any rate, Rex, let's talk a little bit about the book you wrote and what you'll be bringing with you to an event that's going to be happening here on the 5th of March. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So I had an opportunity about 3 years ago to fulfill one of my bucket lists, which was to spend the whole summer in Canada fishing. So I spent 13 weeks fishing in Canada. Well, about the last 3 weeks, I got to thinking on rainy days, I need to do something different. And another bucket list I had was to write a book. So I started writing a book. And it was an interesting opportunity. And I got so involved in it. I was spending 10, 12 hours every day writing and no time fishing. And I thought, man, this is a great book. And I came home and I went to an event that your sister had, that Susie had. And I said, man, Susie, I got this book. It's, I think it's pretty good. I said, how long does it take you to write a book? And she said, oh, it takes me a year, 2 years. And I'm thinking, I guess this 2 months is I must be a really good writer. That shows how unintelligent I was, because 3.5 years later till I published it last month. And Susie did a lot to help me realize some of the things I needed to change. And Janet helped me with some of the marketing and some of the ideas on getting it published. So it's called A Conscious Choice to Love. It's about a young man that grows up. It goes through his whole life, through his family. He has no children of his own, but all those children are his. And that kind of mirrors what my life is. I have no biological children, no biological grandchildren, but they are all mine by choice because I made that conscious choice to love them.
It's a beautiful story. So I have to ask each of you, when you are not talking, if you could mute your mic, because we're getting a little bit of feedback and it might make it hard for our listeners to hear. So, all right, Janet, tell us a little bit about what you're working on, what book you'll be bringing to the March 5th event.
Okay, I'm going to bring When the Heart Speaks, and I'm a storyteller. So even though much of it is my story and my family's story, I think everyone can pretty much relate to it, because let's face it, life doesn't end like we think it's going to. Things happen along the way that we weren't quite expecting. So I share the columns that I've written that were really, I think, the favorites that my readers had while writing for the Hamilton County Reporter. So I will bring that, and then ideas. I always do a lot of listening when I'm at coffee shops around Noblesville. So I wear a shirt often that says, "Beware what you say, it could be used in a novel." So I've got some ideas going, but I'm really looking forward to Sunday. First of all, I want to say I read Rex's book in 2 days, and I couldn't put it down. And even my husband read it and he enjoyed it. So that's a plug for Rex. Susie, I'm just waiting to be on the red carpet when Whistling Past the Graveyard is on the red carpet, because can I tell it, Susie, that you've sold the movie rights? Okay. That book, I just tell everybody who I know reads books, put it on the list. You got to read it. So I'm a super fan of hers, and I just feel excited and blessed to be with two of my dearest friends on Sunday. And I will have to tell you that when I was growing up, Susie was the South End house that I could ride my bike to. Mom would always say, from Field Drive to Susie's house, you can ride. And that's how I had my boundaries growing up.
Those are some good stories, Janet. And I got to tell you, I don't remember the Grant Street days, obviously, but I do remember you being over here at our house quite a bit. Those were some good days. All right, Susan, tell us a little bit about what you got going on and what you're going to be bringing to the March 5th event.
Okay, well, what I've got going on is a lot of work in progress that Rex thinks he wrote too fast. I write too slowly, but I like to write the way I read, which is wallowing in it. And Sally's been pushing me, with the little nudge here lately. Okay, it's time to stop researching and start writing that book. So this week I started writing it. So it's going to be American historical, early American. We'll see what happens with it. It's a story that I'm writing, so the story doesn't die. We heard it from our great grandmother, and it was an event that happened in 1788 on the Tennessee frontier, and I started it thinking I was not going to find much actual documentation of it, but I've been really surprised. I have found a ton of documentation. I've had to do a lot of genealogy research. And every time I find out more about this family, their story is so rich and it keeps going further back in time. So instead of 1788, we're starting right before the American Revolution. So it's an adventure, and I'm writing it for my family. We'll see if anything else happens with it. On Sunday, I'm going to be bringing 3 titles. I'll be bringing Whistling Past the Graveyard, which is a coming-of-age story set in Mississippi in 1963. And that is the one that I've sold the movie rights to, but the cogs are moving very slowly, almost as slowly as I write. So we'll see if it ever gets to fruition here. And a story called The Flying Circus. It takes place in 1923 in the heartland, and it follows 3 barnstormers who are basically on the run from their own personal demons. And then my most recent title is The Myth of Perpetual Summer, also a coming-of-age story set in the 50s and 60s in Mississippi. Apparently, I like small town stories, probably because I grew up in one and have such fond memories of it. So that's what's happening with me.
Awesome. Now we're going to try something. We're going to go ahead and all of us unmute our mics and hope for the best for this Zoom call recording, and that people will actually hear the recording. I know that when I upload this to YouTube, it might be a little bit hard. So for you listeners out there, I do apologize. We're kind of new at all this. So what I would like to do is kind of do a quick roundtable and do some reminiscing of what it was like for each of these authors to grow up in the town that at the time when we were all born, the town had probably around 5,000 people.
Yep.
And by the time I graduated high school in 1979, it had grown to a ginormous size of 12,000 people. So I don't know where we're sitting at today. I'm sure it's well over 50,000. But for anybody who's come to this town, has fallen in love with just the history of this town, it might be beneficial that they learn from the authors. What was it like growing up in Noblesville in the 60s and the 70s? So what memories are the fondest for you? Rex, will you give us a start?
I tell you what, growing up in Noblesville was a real treat, because you had that small town atmosphere. You knew everybody in town. Everybody knew you, so you didn't get away with too much because your parents would always get a call from some other parent. But just the relationships that I had with my good friends, going down to White River and going fishing, going over to Stony Creek and going fishing, playing football together from the very first grinder football team, the first tackle football team for elementary. Myself and Bill Evans and Steve Coverdale, all of us were on that team. Those were special times. It's a lot different than what I see for our grandkids right now that are stuck using social media and their phones all the time. I mean, we went out and we played constantly, and that was great.
Janet, what was your favorite memory?
Oh, my goodness. The friends that I had, I would go from Patty Todd's house to Kathy Craig's house to the Henry twins to Susie's house and yours there on Logan. And we would always seem to find our way to Grandpa's candy store.
Yeah.
Which well, the building is actually still there because I can see it from my house at 10th and Harrison, and take a quarter and come home with a bag of candy and the smells that it had. And then growing up, we remember when Clancy's first opened, and it was a big deal to walk from First Ward to Clancy's when you were, the oldest there. You got to do that. And then we had the Diana Theater, and we had the ABC Drive-In, and we had the Rainbow Roller Rink, and we had a good life with
Yes.
good people. And it's amazing how many of the kids I grew up with, many are still here, but many of them I'm still dear friends with. And it's been a fun life. And I'm very thankful that I stayed here. When I married my husband, Chuck Leonard, 8 years ago, that my mother told him to receive her blessing, he had to keep me in Noblesville. So I'm thankful for that.
Susie?
Well, I'm just echoing the same thing that these guys have done. I remember sitting in the building behind Sally there, the windows would be open, of course, no air conditioning. And Grandpa's candy store was just off to the corner there. And they would make fudge and bonbons. Yeah. I'm probably going the wrong way on your thing. Okay. Fudge and bonbons. And the smell would come through the window, and you'd sit there salivating on your desk, and just waiting to be able to get out of school to go over there. But yeah, nights at walking up to the Diana Theater, meeting everybody, going to the movies. It was just everyone. If you didn't know them personally, you knew who they were, or you knew their cousin, or you knew their family. And it was I don't think any of us appreciated it for what it was when we were living it. But now as adults, seeing how life has changed for our children and our grandchildren, we really do. I mean, you could go out on your bicycle and be gone all day. And your parents, they probably thought they knew where we were, but I don't think they really knew where we were. But there wasn't a real concern for safety, right or wrong, but it was a really good time. And I think that's partly why when I write my stories of coming of age, they all go back to 50s and 60s, where, that freedom, that childhood freedom that we had, that I think a lot of kids don't have now. So, but it was great. It was a wonderful place.
Places that I think that all of you kind of remember that probably hold a lot of summer memories is the Forest Park pool.
Oh yes, I would go out there every day, as long as I could stay there. I'd be, is it 1 o'clock? Is it open yet? Is it 1 o'clock? Is it 1 o'clock? And get dropped off, and Mom would say, well, I'll be back to get you at 3. Oh, I don't think 3. No, it's got to be like 4:30 yeah, it was a fabulous time. I didn't even have to plan on going with a friend, because there was always someone there you knew, which is another positive thing, because the town was small enough, you did run into a friend wherever you went.
Right. Yeah, being out at the park was great. Beyond the swimming pool itself, just the whole park was, I mean, didn't have all the trails and everything that it has right now. We had one little area that had swings and slide, but it was like an adventure place, and I even remember walking back by the railroad tracks on some paths and, doing things I shouldn't have been doing, but you felt safe and it was fun.
And then we got to junior high and there was Babe Ruth baseball. So all of us
Yes.
girls would just find our way into the stands watching the guys and enjoying just
Yeah.
being with our people.
Do you remember the sounds and the smells that the pool had?
Yeah, I remember that old pool house especially.
Yeah.
Right.
We would get there before one, it wasn't at 1 o'clock when it opened.
Yep.
So
We
we
would
would
line
get there
up.
before 1 and we would stand in line with another 100 people. It must have been everybody in Noblesville that was there. But then they'd let you in. The girls had to go to their side. The guys had to go to their side and supposedly take a shower and walk through this little foot bath. And, I mean, I can close my eyes and I can be there. And that
Yeah.
was
In
60
our
years
hair,
ago.
the sun in our hair and all the baby oil, which
Oh, yeah.
I'm paying for that now, but yeah.
I didn't know what sunscreen was. I had never even heard of such a thing.
Tell me a little bit each of your experience about going to the drive-in theater, because it's no longer here, but for those who don't know where it was out off of, help
Cumberland
me out
Road.
here.
Cumberland
Cumberland
Road.
Road?
Yep.
By where the jail is now,
Yep.
isn't that right?
Yes.
There's a
So each
bail
of you-
bondsman place there.
Right.
Right. Okay, so tell us a little bit about what you remember about going to the drive-in theater. Because that was a big moment in Susie and I, our childhood. And I know it had to affect you guys.
I remember the drive-in theater more as a teenager than probably as a child, because it was a great place to go for a date. And I remember, I was a reserve police officer in Noblesville too for a while, and they would always hire us to go out there and, make sure people weren't sneaking people in the trunk and all this stuff. So, I have a many year span of remembrances from the drive-in, but it was always fun. And especially the concession stand there with everything that they had. It's
Yeah.
great.
Well, mom and dad used to take Sally and I out there when we were younger to watch movies. And then I remember, I don't know if you remember this, Sally, after I got my driver's license, I took you and your friends to see the Disney movies when they came on out there.
In the Pinto.
No, I think it was in the Maverick.
Was it in the Maverick?
It was a lovely, lovely vehicle. I just had a little reminiscence about the Maverick with my grandchildren, and he used to sit in the driveway and honk his own horn in the middle of the night.
He was lonely. What do you remember, Janet?
Oh, gosh, I remember my first car was a 65 Mustang. And I was the first one in our class to get my license. So for about a month, I was popular. But you could get 5 of us in there, but really just 4 of us going then to the drive-in. And I don't know. I just remember going to the concession stand and just the smells in there, the best hot dogs, the best popcorn. And then as you walk back to the car, seeing all your friends and yelling and just having just as much time being there as watching the movie.
Yeah, and it was a whole evening affair because you had the cartoons to begin with, then you had the first movie, and then you had the intermission, and then you had a second movie. I don't even remember how much it cost, but man, when you went for hours at a time.
Yes.
So what are your thoughts or memories about, what was it called? It was the dairy at the end of Logan Street, Blue Ribbon Dairy.
Blue Ribbon.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
The best strawberry ripple ice cream on some days. And then other days I wanted lime sherbet. But it was a big deal. Every Sunday afternoon, we took a drive around Hamilton County after our Nazarene nap. And then we would we would go to the Blue Ribbon Dairy, and it was just the best ice cream ever.
It was,
Right.
and you know what's funny
Yeah.
is we lived on Logan Street, what, 3 blocks from the Blue Ribbon Dairy, 4 blocks? We drove. Remember, we always were in the car, unloaded, went in, got our ice cream, came back out.
And what I remember about it is we would go down to White River to fish, and then we would go to the Blue Ribbon Dairy and get treats, and then come back to the river and fish, into the evening. So
Now, when you guys all first got your driver's license, we used to have this road that was a country road with very few homes on it and a lot of cows, and it was called River Road. Do y'all remember driving down there on like summer evenings with the windows down and how it smelled with the sweet grasses and the lightning bugs? You remember that?
I
think
remember
that
River
was-
Road very well.
I don't think I was allowed to go that far. And sometimes I was grounded from cruising the Jim Dandy. So
Oh, well, our grandfather lived out on River Road and we used to ride out there. We used to ride out there in the bed of the pickup truck. That's why we got such a good whiff of the grasses and the lightning bugs. And there was a dog leg curve there. And Sally and I used to argue about whose curve was whose. I wanted the curve that had the biggest turn and the more dip to it. But no, we had to argue about it. And I was thinking, as my grandchildren sit in the back seat of my car and argue about things, and could you think of something more inane to argue about? And then I think, oh yeah, probably the curve on a road, who it belonged to, right?
You had me in tears. We actually talked about that the other day when we were on River Road and we were coming around that curve that we used to argue about. We're like, why would we argue about something we neither one could possess?
Sally, you didn't
Ugh.
have to go to River Road to smell the cows, because when we were at Connor School in kindergarten, there was the huge farm right there that bordered the school that had all those milk cows. And
right.
Where the
making-
McDonald's is.
McDonald's is today, as I recall, right?
yeah, what was
Yeah.
the name of? Do you know the name? Remember the name?
Yes, and now it's gone.
Yeah,
Didn't it start with a G?
I just don't remember, but it was just a different world than it is.
There was
now.
this little cemetery there too.
Yes.
There's a-
It's still there. Yeah. Yeah.
the
Yeah,
little
it's the
tiny
family plot, and now I'm drawn, I feel bad. Gyshaw.
Gosh, I knew it was a
Yes,
G.
that's right.
Yeah.
Gyshaw, yeah. They, in fact, the original farm for Gyshaw, it was quite large. They recently moved their original family home that was over there by the new strip across, help me out, you guys. There was a gravel road that traveled alongside 37.
Right.
And it was at the far north side, and Mexican restaurant sort of sits there now and all that. That was the Gashar farm, and they were one of the largest farms in Hamilton County. And I think that farm extended all the way to 16th Street at one point.
I think it did.
Yes. I
And
think so.
Susie and I remember we would go to our aunt's house on Maple Street. And as we would come out on Maple and I think 17th Street or 18th Street, that a part of that farm was still there.
Mhm.
So we had cows in town. Cows in town. What do y'all remember about Beamies?
Oh,
I love
Saturday night.
beanies. I hated when beanies went out of business because
Ah,
even until I was like in my mid-20s, beanies was there, and I worked with my brother Steve selling insurance at the time, and we'd go there for lunch a lot of times. And they always had homemade everything. It was great. I just hate that was part of Noblesville that is not there any longer.
yeah, little Beanie's cafeteria with the naughty pine paneling. And, I was thinking about that the other day. What were there? 4 booths in there? Because it was a cafeteria serving 4 booths, and then they had maybe 6 tables or something in the back. It was that would had to have been a rough way to make enough money to keep the place open, I would think, compared to the turnover you have to have today to keep a restaurant open. But we just love Beanie Paskins. He was back there every day, a smile on his face. He knew what you wanted when you came in. He knew I wanted Harvard Beats whenever I came in there, so he'd have it ready as you were coming up the line.
Janet, do you have any memories of beanies?
Oh, gosh, I do. This sounds so, the things you remember, it's like, how did I remember that? I just remember their windows were always steamed up. They had that small window in the door. It was always steamed up. You could never see in because it was hot in there between the steam off of the tables of, everything being served the way it was. What a strange thing to remember.
But it was, and it felt really good when you went in the winter because it was that warm air when you opened the door. Yeah, with the porthole.
Yes.
The porthole window in the door and the Art Deco window in the front. Yeah, it was great. Yeah.
You talk about the smell of someplace that evoked a lot of warm fuzzies. I recall the Forest Park Inn, and we would go out there in the fall or the winter, and they would have their fireplace, the real fireplace going with real wood burning. And when you would walk in there, I mean, it just smelled so unique and wonderful. Do y'all have memories of that going over there? For, I don't know, did they have like was it service? Because it was pretty little when
They had a restaurant that kind of came and went for several years. I know, well, and take that back another generation. Our parents, our mother talked about, that's where the high school kids would go gather, was at the Forest Park Inn when she was in high school, and they would have dances on the porch out there. And so, that goes back many generations of great memories.
But the fireworks out there, every 4th of July, I can remember this. Every 4th of July, we would take our car out. We always went out with the Griffins, and we would take one car out there to leave it so we would have a saved place. And we would park on 19, just right at the curve there. And then I don't know exactly how we all got out there because there was 2 families and friends and all, but we always stayed at the same place, and they were the best fireworks. I mean, we would sit there. It was a big deal. And then afterwards we would come home and have homemade ice cream. But this was like, it was an event.
Well, and that was the only time we had fireworks, was the 4th of July. And they set them off on the golf course at Forest Park. And we'd take blankets and sit out there. And we didn't get fireworks just willy-nilly like people do now.
No, that's for sure.
Not at all.
Well, everyone, thank you for showing up today. I hope everybody in Noblesville who enjoys history and enjoys our local talent. I just want to make a real quick mention for everybody. We'll wrap it up. Our authors are actually going to be together on March 5th. That's a Sunday, 1 to 4 p.m. at Prime Evil Brewing at 960 Logan Street. And they'd like to invite you out, meet with them, talk with them, get a signed copy of their books. Really helps them out, and also helps out the community because it actually spreads a lot of goodwill and helps our community out in many ways. So again, come out, shake hands, have a chat with each of you. Rex, beginning with you, is there anything that you would like to end on that you would like to tell Noblesville since you're here?
The book that I wrote, it takes place in Noblesville. That's where the people lived, and then it goes out from there. But I still used a lot of landmarks that are in Noblesville. It has just meant so much to me being a part of Noblesville all my life. And I'm glad that I was able to serve. I served with Susie's husband on the library board for a while and on the council and trying to give back. And, I hate that the community's not 5,000 people still, but if it was only 5,000 people, it probably wouldn't be here any longer. So it's kind of like you either grow or you die. And while Noblesville is growing, I think they're still doing a good job of trying to maintain a historical aspect of it, even with the growth. And I'm proud of that.
Thanks, Rex. Janet?
Oh my goodness. I love my hometown. I love the people. It's become, I call it a Hallmark community because there's a lot of love in our downtown, and my readers with the Hamilton County Reporter and even with my book have people and businesses have been so supportive, and it means so much to a first-time 67-year-old author with the support that I've had. And as people have read my book, they're like, I remember that, or I remember that building, because I talk a lot about Noblesville because it's so much a part of still who I am. So we hope to see a lot of our classmates and downtown people, and we'll just have a good time and lots to talk about.
Thanks, Janet. Susan?
Well, gotta, echo the other two once again. This town has meant a lot to us. Most of our parents, if not grew up here, lived here most of their adult lives. And I think that's, it's a place where I feel like, you can still put down deep roots for your family and still have a really great sense of community. So, and part of that is being able to have events like this that we're going to have on Sunday, where we can all just get together and talk and share memories and, talk about our passions and the things that we're interested in. You don't have to ask a writer very much if you're talking about their book to really get them started talking. So bring your ears, bring your ideas. You may have ideas for books that we've never even thought of that can anchor us more to this town. But so we hope to see a lot of friends and new people on Sunday.
Great, Susan. Rex, one more question for all of you. But Rex, if somebody wanted to reach out to you, contact you for a book purchase or just to have some questions, where would they find you?
So it's real easy for my email address. It's just rexdillinger@sbcglobal.net. And my book is on Amazon.com. It's called A Conscious Choice to Love.
Great. Janet?
Okay, I'm at janethartleonard@gmail.com. My book is on Amazon, and it's also at Barnes & Noble. And it's at Thistle and Time in Noblesville, as well as Living Truth. So you can find it there. And I do want to say two things. First of all, thank you, Sally. This was awesome for you to do. We are not professionals at being interviewed or anything like that. So you kept us calm. And then I have to thank Susan, because she cheered me on and she wrote a wonderful blurb on the back of my book, which is a big deal. So when you have friends like that, and then Rex cheered me on, so we have a good community and good friends.
My pleasure, Janet. It's been a lot of fun today. Susan?
Okay, my website is susancrandall.net, and you can contact me through there, or you can contact me at susancrandall.net is the email address. And my books are available Amazon, actually any retailer of books. If they don't have them in stock, they can get them. My first 9 are out of print, so they're a little harder to come by, but the last 3 are still all available.
Great. Well, again, thank you all. I hope you've enjoyed our little roundtable of local authors. If you have any questions, please reach out to them, and thanks for watching.
Thank you, Sally.
Thank you.